Giving Habit, brought to you in partnership with the Majority Trust. Learn more about how they do philanthropy differently at majority.sg. The episode with Jetha Devapura, founder of Let's Talk and the CCC Foundation, left me thinking about a simple question. Why do some people experience suffering and become smaller, while others experience suffering and somehow become larger? Jetha's story is remarkable because it isn't really a story about charity, it's a story about transformation. Many years ago, he was diagnosed with OCD, a serious anxiety disorder that affected his daily life. What struck me was that the lessons he learned during that period became the foundation for everything that followed. Courage, compassion, commitment. 3 words that helped him navigate his own suffering eventually became the values behind CCC Foundation and the work he now does helping thousands of other people. There's a lesson in that for all of us. We often think purpose is something we need to go searching for. We imagine it's hidden somewhere, waiting to be discovered. But Jetha offered a different perspective. He said, you don't go looking for purpose, purpose comes to you. The more I reflect on that, the more I think he's right. Purpose rarely arrives as a lightning bolt. More often, it arrives disguised as a problem you can't ignore or a conversation you can't forget. For Jetha, it was seeing children and families sleeping on the floor of a cancer hospital in Sri Lanka. He couldn't walk away from it. And because he couldn't walk away, he took one small step, then another and another. 22 years later, that single moment has become a movement. We don't need to have our entire lives figured out before we begin. We simply need to pay attention to what moves us. The second thing that stayed with me was the Let's Talk framework. Please go and take a look when you get the chance. On the surface, it sounds like a mental health program, but I actually think it's something more broader than that. And it's hard. It's about helping people feel seen and heard and valued. That's something every one of us can practice. One of the tools Jetha shared was the idea of facts, feelings and fears. I use this all the time. Most of us jump straight into emotions or assumptions. We're often frustrated, worried, or just plain angry. We imagine worst case scenarios. But what if we slowed down and asked ourselves, what are the facts? How do I feel? What am I really afraid of? It's such a simple framework, but I found it incredibly useful. Not because it solves every problem, it doesn't, but because it creates space. It turns out that often what people need most isn't advice, they need understanding. Imagine what would happen if we brought that mindset into our workplaces. Imagine if our teams felt safe enough to share ideas without fear of being judged. Imagine if people felt comfortable admitting mistakes. Imagine if our children felt able to tell us what was really going on in their lives. Psychological safety sounds like a corporate buzzword, but really it's about creating environments where people can be human. I participated in the inaugural Distinguished Senior Fellowship Programme at the National University of Singapore last year, where I had the privilege of spending time with a group of accomplished leaders from across Asia and beyond. Despite the differences in our backgrounds, I noticed something remarkably consistent. The most meaningful conversations weren't about strategy, technology, or economic forecasts. They were about uncertainty, purpose, family, about the challenges we all face but don't always talk about. Looking back, what made those conversations possible was psychological safety. People felt able to speak honestly without fear or judgment, which is precisely why the work Jetha is doing through Let's Talk matters so much, whether we're in a boardroom, a classroom, or around a dinner table. The quality of our relationships is often determined by whether people feel safe enough to be themselves. The final thing that resonated with me was Jetha's honesty about stepping away from a successful corporate career to pursue his work full time. He didn't romanticize it. He talked openly about the uncertainty, the discomfort, and yes, the financial pressure. I appreciated that. Too often, we hear stories after they're worked out. We rarely hear about the messy middle. And as Jetha reminded us, courage isn't the absence of discomfort. It's the willingness to sit with discomfort long enough for something meaningful to emerge. Don't rush back to your comfort zone, he suggests. Instead, wait for it to come to you. Toward the end of our conversation, he shared 2 words his father used to tell him. Hemming, hemming. It means slowly, slowly. I think that's advice many of us need to hear. We live in a world obsessed with speed, but meaningful change rarely works that way. Relationships don't, personal growth doesn't, purpose doesn't. Instead, it's often one conversation, one act of service, one difficult step, one day at a time. Slowly, slowly. So perhaps that's the invitation from this episode. You don't need to know exactly where you're going. You don't need a perfectly formed purpose. You simply need the courage to take the next step, the compassion to care for yourself and others along the way, and the commitment to keep going. And if you do that, perhaps purpose will reveal itself when you're ready to receive it. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.